Okay, hi guys. Quick video on special angles. We're going to talk about in geometry. There's all these different types of angles that you got to learn and understand. But there's a couple that we can kind of start to memorize and just get to know down really well. And so I'm going to go through those special different angles, and there's a few types. So I'm going to do an example. And one of the angles that we all know pretty well already from class is a 90-degree angle, and that's an angle that meets and looks like this. It's nice because you can draw it on graph paper really easy. It's this angle in the corner. It measures 90 degrees. And sometimes we call this thing our right angle. I'm going to draw some arrows on here. So this is called our right angle. And it's kind of one we can just commit to memory. It's not too hard to remember like what 90 degrees is like. It's a sharp T and it's right in the corner there. So we just kind of memorize it. Well, here's the thing. What we're going to be doing today in this video is taking the angles that we know, like a 90-degree angle, and then maybe doing something like this where we draw a line through it. Now I've got an angle here, call this angle 1, and now I've got an angle over here, a big one, I'll call angle 2. Now together they still make 90 degrees, but I've split it up. If I take angle 1 plus angle 2, and we're measuring these angles, so I'm going to write this. I'm going to put an M for measuring. Measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2, then it still equals 90 degrees when you add those together. When you do this, when you take a 90-degree angle and you split it up into 2 angles or 3 or 4, then we have a name for this. This is called complementary angles, and this is something you should memorize. Complementary angles. In geometry, this comes up a lot. So if somebody asks you what a complementary angle is, or says, can you show me complementary angles, you have to kind of know, okay, it's when I have 2 angles that add up to 90 degrees. So I'm going to write 2 angles whose measures, because we measure them, whose measures add up to 90 degrees. Add up to 90 degrees. So complementary angles are 2 angles that add up to 90 degrees. So that's one special case that you really should know and be kind of familiar with. Here's another special case, another example. Another angle that we know really well, because it's a simple angle, is the 180-degree angle. It's basically a straight line. And if I asked you what the angle is, you'd say from here to here is 180 degrees. Pretty easy. What we're going to do is kind of the same thing. We're going to take this angle, draw some random line, cut it up. So now that I've done this, I've got an angle over here, which I'll call angle 1. And I've got this angle on the other side here, which I'll call angle 2. And again, if I put the angles together, the measurement of angle 1 plus the measurement of angle 2 adds up to 180 degrees. So it's kind of like the 91. I split up a 90-degree angle a second ago. Now I'm splitting up 180. And the name for this is supplementary. So supplementary. Sorry, I said that weird. Supplementary angles. And this is another one that in geometry, if somebody said, hey, what's a supplementary angle? You should just know, okay, it's when I get these 2 angles that add up to 180. So I'm going to write my definition down here. 2 angles whose measures add up to 180 degrees. So 2 angles whose measures add up to 180 degrees. And I would write that down somewhere because that's one you're going to want to remember. So we got complementary, we got supplementary, and then we've got one more special angle that I kind of want to talk about today. So I'm going to draw a new picture. And this special angle, we'll do this example. This is an angle formed with 2 lines that cross each other. So you can draw 2 lines however you want, but I'm going to draw mine like this. Here's a line, and here is another line. And you can draw them at different angles and whatnot. The special angles that form are the ones that go across from each other. I have an angle here and an angle here. And if I tried to measure them, turns out that this angle we'll call angle 1, and this angle we'll call angle 2. They end up measuring to be exactly the same. So the measurement of angle 1 actually equals the measurement of angle 2. Like if this was 85 degrees, then so would angle 2. It would also be 85 degrees. They're equal angles, equal measurements. Equal, in geometry, we use the word congruent. So we say that these are congruent angles. So congruent angles. You can have congruent triangles, you can have congruent circles, you can have congruent lines. Congruent's just when two things are the same. So congruent angles. This is a special case. They're right across from each other. They're formed from the same lines. So we call these two congruent angles, we call them vertical angles. So we have lots of words for this. And this is another special angle case that we try and memorize. Anytime you have vertical angles, they're equal to each other. So that's something we kind of have to remember. So let me show you an example of a problem where we could take these three special angles that we're learning and combine them and use them. So here's an example. Let's say I made up a picture and I drew a line like this and another line like this, and I told you that there's 103 degrees from here to here in that little angle, and I gave you X over here and said I don't know how big it is, and I asked you, could you figure it out? Could you solve for X? So solve for X. Well, if you know your special angles, then you know that we can use one of them on this problem. Straight flat lines have 180 degrees altogether. So when I look at this thing, I'm thinking, okay, it has to add up to 180 degrees. So this, if I put them together, the measurement of angle 103 degrees, I guess that sounds kind of weird. So how about the measurement, we'll just say, of angle, what do I want to call this? I don't want to call it that. Let's call this first angle A. Yeah, I don't want to call it that either. I don't like what I'm saying. Okay, start over. We have 103 degrees plus the measurement of angle X that I don't know has to equal 180 altogether. So we already know the measurement, so I didn't want to use an M. Didn't mean to make that confusing, but 103 degrees plus the measurement of this one that I don't know has to equal 180. And this is an algebra problem. It's kind of like solving for X. I can put a line down the middle. If I want to simplify this so it doesn't look so messy, I can write 103 plus X equals 180. This is going to be a quick solve. Subtract the 103 minus the 103 to the other side. Do the math. 180 minus 103 is 77. So X equals 77, which means this angle is 77 degrees. And I got my answer. And I figured all this out by knowing that these angles are called supplementary angles. They add up to 180. And so this is kind of how you're going to see it in your textbook and definitely down the road on tests and things like that. You're going to see problems kind of like this. They get more complex. This, to be honest, is one of the easier ones. But you're getting the idea, I hope. Try one, and then this will be our last one for the video. But you should pause the video and do this one on your own. See if you're kind of getting the hang of this at all, because it's good to see. So how about this? I'm going to draw a flat line, and then a straight line like this. Then I'm going to draw a 90-degree angle and another ray going like this. And I'm going to put some numbers in here. I'm going to say that this is 2x and this is x. So I don't know how much either of these angles measure, but I know that this is 2x and this is x. So just looking at this problem, I'm going to be able to say, okay, well, I can tell you that the measurement of angle x plus the measurement of angle 2x adds up to 90 degrees. And the name for that, remember we call that complementary angles. So complementary. Any angles that add up to 90 degrees. So, to simplify this problem, I'm going to solve it like an algebra equation. I'm going to forget about the measurements just to make it less confusing, and I'm just going to write x plus 2x equals 90. It's way less confusing like this. This is the real official geometry way to write it out. But if I do it like this, x plus 2x means I have 3x's equals 90. And if I divide by 3 and divide by 3, this will at least be one that I can easily solve. X is going to equal 30. So I solve for x. I know what x is. If this is x, then this is 30 degrees in this corner. If this is 2x, then this is 2 times 30 degrees, which 2 times 30 is 60. So we have a 60 degree angle. So this is 60 degrees. It's a little bigger here. And this is 30 degrees from here to here. Makes 90 altogether. So 3 types of angles. Commit them to memory. We've got the complementary angles. Remember this. Complementary add up to 90. Supplementary angles looks like this. They add up to 180. And then we got that other weird case called vertical angles. And they're just 2 angles that equal each other. They're straight across from each other. So definitely you want to memorize those and have them down.